This is Women Road Warriors with Shelley Johnson and Kathy Tuccaro. If you drive long haul, short haul, or heavy haul, they're here to empower and inspire women in the trades on tncradio.live. So gear down, sit back, and enjoy.
Welcome to Women Road Warriors with Shelley Johnson and Kathy Tuccaro. We're a show that works to inspire and empower women in trucking, in the trades, and every profession. We tackle all kinds of topics and work to encourage women to be their very best with informative guests and women who've been champions. I'm your host, Shelley Johnson. Kathy is on assignment. No topic is not allowed on our rig. We tackle the tough topics along with the not-so-tough topics. And we like to feature experts and celebrities who can assist women in being the very best they can be. Many women have issues with worry, anxiety, and frustration. Much of this can be brought on by stress. Have you ever wished that worry, anxiety, and stress would just go away? Dr. Katie Nall offers a way to do just that. She's the author of Dissolving Waffles: Worries, Anxiety, Fear, Frustration, Lethargy, Exhaustion, and Stress. Thus, Waffles. She's been a TED speaker twice and is a Florida mathematician. Dr. Nall works with people on making positive changes or barrier reductions with the emotional freedom technique. We wanted to learn more about Dr. Nall and how she helps people, so we invited her on the show. Welcome, Dr. Nall. Thank you for being with me.
Thank you so much, Shelley. I am honored and excited to be on your incredible show.
Oh, well, thank you. And we're honored. I'm honored. And I understand it's okay to call you Katie.
Please do.
Okay. So I think where we could start is a little bit of background about yourself. A mathematician who also helps people. This is really kind of an interesting juxtaposition, if you will. And I want to learn more about you. I know our listeners do too.
Shelley, I was a late in life graduate student fulfilling a dream that I had set when I was 18 years old. Fast forward to over 40 years, and I'm a full-time employee taking graduate level classes at night to earn my PhD in mathematics education. Part of my education was working to help students who were coming to our college and had one class left to finish. Shelley, you knew it had to be math. And they couldn't even register for the class. They were so upset and anxious about it.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, you know.
So math was not one of my favorite courses at all.
Yeah, that just breaks my heart, Shelley, when I hear that. Because to me, math is like the basis of everything. It's a basis of art. It's a basis of science, of course,
and music, all of the
music.
above.
Exactly, exactly. And when you talk about truckers, you know, if you don't have your math down for your load, for your driving, for your reports, right? It'll cost you in the long run. So
sure.
Yeah, so math is really important to me, but I had all these students who did very well in other classes, but when it came to math, they just froze. And I wanted to help them. So my research led me to a 2010 summit called the Tapping Solutions Summit. I watched all 10 days. I bought the book, I bought the DVD, and I went to the students and I said, look, I have no idea if this is going to work or not. Because Shelley, those 10 days, they talked about how to reduce your worry about finances. They talked about how to get over your fear of relationships. They talked about everything except math and test taking. So I didn't know if it was going to work or not. But I had a room full of students who were desperate. And we both know that desperate clients are the best, right?
True.
They will try anything. And
Yep.
so I got them to try this. I said, I don't know if this is going to work or not. Well, they came back a few weeks later, Shelley, and said, I think I'm passing my math class. I don't know who was more surprised, them or me, because we didn't know if it was going to work, right?
Yeah.
And so I was thinking about it and I thought, oh my gosh, I have no idea what I'm doing. I better go back and get training. So I went back and got training in level 1, level 2, level 3, quantum, which is very interesting about past lives, picture tapping, and although it only took me 4 years to earn my PhD in mathematics education, in order to become a master trainer, it took me 8 years
Wow.
to go through all the coursework. But now I can train others, and that's my passion. That's what I love to do.
So, what are all of these specialties? I'm not sure everybody knows what all of those things are that you were trained in.
So, first of all, emotional freedom technique, it's also called EFT or tapping,
Hmm.
is a brain-based somatic technique to dissolve waffles. Level one is a level that you would take to learn how to use this for yourself and your friends and your family. Level two is required if you want to become certified, if you want to be able to use it and be able to charge people. Level three is advanced and is part of the pathway to become a trainer. And then there's supervisory mentorship. The quantum tapping I took on a lark, Shelley. A friend said, "Hey, the Australian presenter is going to be in South Florida. Do you want to go here?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure, whatever." I had no idea what I was getting into. And I was in the middle of this training and I was like, oh my gosh, what is this all about? But as it turns out, I've used it a surprising number of times in working with clients. And then picture tapping is really exciting. That's, if you don't mind, we'll do an example with you in a
Sure.
few minutes. But picture tapping, and when we do the example, I'm going to get really, really specific. But picture tapping is when I have clients who come in and say, I'm overwhelmed. I'm just completely overwhelmed. And I go, okay. And they can't get it any more refined than that. So it actually is part of kind of a combination of art therapy as well as EFT.
Interesting.
But
You
if
know,
you'd like to, would you like to try a sample?
oh, sure, absolutely.
Okay, I'm going to ask you a whole bunch of questions. So I guess I'll be the interviewer for a minute.
Okay, sounds great.
Okay, Shelley, in the last 24 to 48 hours, can you think of anything that's caused you waffles? Anything that's caused you worry, anxiety, fear, frustration, lethargy, exhaustion, or stress?
Um, well, I'm up in Michigan in my studio, and I would say the weather. I
Mm,
really hate driving in precarious driving conditions, if you will.
yeah,
With Michigan, you can be dealing with freezing rain, snow, that sort of thing. So,
yeah,
yeah. Hmm.
yeah. Okay, that's a good one. That's a good one. The interesting thing about tapping is that when I work with clients, they don't even have to tell me what the issue is because some people don't feel comfortable saying it. But with driving in precarious weather, so can you
Hmm.
remember the last time that you were driving in weather like that?
The last winter.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Okay,
Sure.
last
Yeah.
winter. Okay.
Yeah.
So you're anticipating driving in the next few days. Is that where you're coming from?
Yeah. And just kind of keeping an eye on the forecast and that sort of thing. And
Yeah.
and it isn't so much me, it's the other people that don't do
Oh
what
my
they're
gosh.
supposed to do. And maybe it's the loss of control there. It's like you can't drive
Oh,
somebody else's vehicle.
I know. I hate that. Um,
We all want to, don't we?
right.
Yeah.
Okay. So when you think about last winter and you were getting in your car and you realized that the weather was bad, when you
Mhm,
think about it now, what
mhm.
negative emotion is coming up? Now, I know that's a surprise and it's a little different from, I know Janice and Peggy were on your show and talking about stressing and burnout. But this is a little different. We're gonna actually address the negative part head on. So when you think about driving in that Michigan winter weather,
Mhm.
what emotion comes up now?
Well, I guess uh, anxiety, would that be considered an emotion or is that just a
That's a great
feeling?
yeah, I love
Uh-huh.
anxiety.
Okay.
Okay, and now these next questions are a little different. From the top of your head to the bottom of your toes,
Mhm.
where do you feel that anxiety in your body? Can you name that?
Mm, probably more in my stomach area, my gut. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Which do you prefer, the word stomach or gut?
No, either one doesn't matter.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
And from 0 to 10, where 0 is like, it's no big deal. I've done this hundreds of times. I'll be fine. And 10 is the most anxiety you've had in your entire life.
Mhm. Well, I guess it will depend on what the forecast is, but if I dwell on it, it can get up to a 5, and then I have to talk myself back. It's like,
Okay.
come on, you know, over anticipation. you know?
Okay. Sure, sure. That's good. And is this a true statement? Right here, right now, I feel safe.
Oh, yeah. Right.
Okay.
Absolutely. That's true.
So, for those of you in your wide listening audience who are following along, you, unless you're driving, don't do this. But if you're not driving, follow along with us as I lead Shelley through this. So, Shelley, take one hand and put it in front of your face so you're looking at the palm. Got
Uh-huh.
that?
Uh-huh.
And with your other hand, take 4 fingers of your other hand and tap on the side of your hand between your wrist and your little finger. You got that?
Okay.
Okay. And then repeat after me and change the words if what I'm saying is not true. Okay. And say, even though,
Even though,
just thinking about driving in that Michigan weather.
just thinking about driving in that precarious Michigan weather. Yes.
Right. Very good. I feel this anxiety in my stomach.
I feel this anxiety in my stomach.
Right here, right now, I feel safe.
Right here, right now, I feel safe.
We're going to do that 2 more times. Even though,
Even though,
thinking about that precarious Michigan weather
thinking about that precarious Michigan weather
and having to drive in it,
and having to drive in it,
I feel all this anxiety in my stomach.
I feel all this anxiety in my stomach.
Right here, right now, I feel safe anyway.
Right here, right now, I feel safe anyway.
And then last time, even though
Even though
I have some anxiety in my stomach today,
I have some anxiety in my stomach today,
just thinking about the upcoming precarious Michigan winter.
just thinking about the upcoming precarious Michigan winter or weather,
Weather that I am going to be driving in.
that I'm going to be driving in.
Right here, right now, I feel safe.
Right here, right now, I feel safe.
And then, Shelley, tap on the top of your head. You can use your right hand or your left hand or both, and right on the top of your head and say, this anxiety in my stomach.
This anxiety in my stomach.
And then above your nose on the inside of your eyebrow right there, again, you can use your right hand or left hand or both and say, this anxiety in my stomach.
This anxiety in my stomach.
And then on your temple between your eye and your hairline, again, you can use your right side, left side, or both.
Uh-huh.
And take a breath and say, this anxiety in my stomach. Whew.
This anxiety in my stomach.
And then next place is where I keep all my bags for a quick getaway, and that's under your eyes. And
Uh-huh.
say this anxiety in my stomach.
This anxiety in my stomach.
And then under the nose, this anxiety in my stomach.
This anxiety in my stomach.
Then under the lips, this anxiety in my stomach.
This anxiety in my stomach.
And then on the collarbone, this anxiety in my stomach.
This anxiety in my stomach.
And then on your ribs, up under your arm, you're going to pat it down and say, this anxiety in my stomach.
This anxiety in my stomach.
Now blow all your air out like a cartoon character. It goes like this.
Like that?
Yeah. Shelley,
Okay.
when you think about the precarious Michigan winter weather, how much anxiety do you have in your stomach now from 0 to 10?
Oh, far less, I think. I think I feel more empowered, maybe?
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
The crazy thing is that there have been clinical studies that have been done on this all over the world, and they found that 1 hour of doing this can reduce your cortisol level, which is what happens, which rises when you're stressed, by 42% in 1 hour. There's no other drug or therapy that can do that quickly. It's an amazing a method that is non-addictive, non-invasive, and can be self-administered when trained.
Interesting. What's actually happening in the body?
So we're not really quite sure. It is based on traditional Chinese medicine with the meridians. We know that traditional Chinese medicine, all the spots that we're hitting, hit about 96 to 98% of all meridians. Traditional Chinese medicine believes that if there is a blockage in your meridian, then that causes these emotions and can actually cause disease. So some people tap for an hour a day. There's actually a school in Pacific Grove, California, a middle school, where they tap for 6 minutes a day, just 6 minutes a day. And they found in doing that the students' test scores have gone up, that the discipline problems have gone down, and even the special education students are able to perform at a higher level.
Interesting.
I know. And you can use it with infants to anyone else. Our latest granddaughter was born, and there were so many people around, right, when she was just a few months old.
Mhm.
And have you seen babies when they are so wound up that they can't eat, they can't sleep, they can't even cry? They're just so upset that they just scream.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
okay, so you know what I'm talking about. So she was at that point. Her other grandmother was holding her on her chest, just trying to, patting her on the back, trying to relax her and everything. And not really, Shelley, nothing was working. So I asked everybody, I said, is it okay if I tap on her? And they said, oh, please, anything. Right?
Sure.
And so I just tapped on the top of her head, on the inside edge of her eyebrow, and on her temple. And by the time I got to her temple, she was out and asleep like that.
Wow.
I know.
Stay tuned for more of Women Road Warriors coming up.
Industry movement Trucking Moves America Forward is telling the story of the industry. Our safety champions, the women of trucking, independent contractors, the next generation of truckers, and more. Help us promote the best of our industry. Share your story and what you love about trucking. Share images of a moment you're proud of. And join us on social media. Learn more at truckingmovesamerica.com.
Welcome back to Women Road Warriors with Shelley Johnson and Kathy Tuccaro.
You know, Katie, I find your tapping method extremely amazing. It can even help with infants and in their stress. Is this kind of based on acupressure or acupuncture points?
Definitely. The
Okay.
acupuncture and acupressure points come from traditional Chinese medicine. They're all a division of something called Qigong. And Gary Craig was the electrical engineer who designed tapping. He got his degree from Stanford. And when he saw somebody else doing something similar to this, he went back and looked at the meridians and he said, and he saw them as electrical circuits, right? Which they kind of are.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, look, these 8 points that we do on the basic tapping level are where most of them intersect. And so he started promoting these. What's interesting, Shelley, is that when he started this in the 1990s, he actually tried it and went to a veterans hospital. At the veterans hospital, he worked with veterans who had been drugged and hospitalized for over 40 years from the Vietnam War.
Wow.
And um, the story goes that he worked with them for a week doing tapping. And in 1 week, they were drug free and able to leave the hospital.
Wow. That's
Right.
phenomenal.
Right. And in terms of, I started off working with students, but I've worked with a lot of other people. I had one student who had taken her SAT test, which is a national scholastic aptitude test that a lot of colleges use to determine eligibility of students coming in. She had done quite well and could certainly get into her college of her choice. She was looking for more scholarships and felt that she needed a higher score. And she felt that she was capable of it. So she signed up for a second time, paid for it, studied her butt off,
Yeah.
and took it a second time. And oh my gosh, her scores went down.
Ooh,
And she said, no,
man.
I know I can do this. I know I can do this. So she signed up and registered a third time. And, she's in high school. Life got busy, this, that, and the other. And then it got to be Sunday morning. And she's like, oh, the test is on Saturday and I haven't done anything. Well, her
Mhm.
mother had heard about tapping, contacted me. We had a session on Monday, we had a session on Wednesday, and we had a session on Friday. On Saturday, when she went to take her SAT test, she scored 90 points higher than her first exam.
Wow.
So that was a significant jump. And it was because we were able to get her to relax. When we're
Sure.
stressed, when we're stressed, there's no oxygen, there's little oxygen going to our brain. And we need oxygen in our brain to be able to think, right?
Yes. You know, certainly test anxiety, that's a legitimate feeling.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And people can know the subject matter, but they may not test well because of the anxiety.
Right.
I remember encountering some of that. I was taking the graduate records exam, and
Yep.
for some reason, the testing people allowed. I was there on time, but I had to be back to work, so there was a window of time where I could take this exam, and they were letting people in late and would not let you start the test, which gave me less time. And that started raising my anxiety. And I remember that impacted my
Mm.
thinking because I
Yeah.
was stressed. And it's almost like there's a block in your mind.
Mm-hmm.
And it
Mm-hmm.
must have been because of the stress. Of course, I was not happy. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
these people were supposed to be on time. Why are you making exceptions?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because
Yeah.
that inconvenienced people who had jobs that they
Mm-hmm.
had to go back to. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. You're so right. And even if everything goes right, I've worked with some clients who say when they go to take a test, they can't stand the noise. I said, "What noise?" They said, "I said, you can get earplugs because we have earplugs in the testing center, right?"
Hmm.
And he said, "No, no, no, the earplugs won't work." I said, "Well, what noise are you talking about?" He said, "I can't stand the noise of the fluorescent lights." And
Interesting. Yeah.
which is something that we were able to work on and tap on so that he could ignore that buzzing sound, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And he could concentrate and get through his test.
Some people are more sensitive to that, and certain fluorescent lights do, in fact, have more noise than others. It's kind
Oh
of
yeah,
interesting. Yeah.
yeah, you're
Hmm.
right. Now, in terms of your audience, there may be times where they are feeling stressed, or you have a personal life, right? And sometimes you get out of your personal life to go to your work, and maybe you've come out of a difficult situation, but you still have to focus at work.
Yep.
Doing these simple tapping exercises can help you relieve those negative emotions you're feeling, and be able to focus on driving a very potentially dangerous truck, right?
Sure. And that's true for anybody in any profession. We have a lot of women listeners that are in other professions as well.
And it
Well,
goes the other way around. I know my brother's a truck driver, and he sends me photographs from time to time of trucking accidents. And as you're driving down the road and you see a trucking accident, you can't help but feel that feeling in your gut or wherever of, oh my gosh, I hope everybody's okay. And you may worry about it. And knowing how to tap can help you get past that so that you can focus on your own job that you have at hand.
sure.
It's an
We
incredible, incredible tool.
It really is. And we have women who listen who aren't necessarily in trucking too. And
Hmm.
when you think about it, the stress of any job, and if you're
Hmm.
bringing things, you're packing a lot of stress and anxiety from
Hmm.
home, bringing it to work, and you can't necessarily deal with it at that moment. Say you had an argument with your spouse before you went to work.
Right.
That makes it very difficult. So this gives you a technique so that you can at least focus, do your
Yeah.
job, and level out, if you will.
And it goes the other way too, Shelley. I know when I was working at the college, if I'd had so much going on that I couldn't even take a breath, and then
Hmm.
walk in the door to home and be expected to do all the responsibilities I have at home. It was nice to be able to stop and just do a quick round of tapping or two to release all of those emotions before I walked in the front door.
Stay tuned for more of Women Road Warriors coming up.
Trucking Moves America Forward, or TMAF, is building a positive image of trucking by telling the story of the hardworking drivers and industry professionals who support the industry. And you can be a part of it. Learn more about TMAF and how you can join and be a part of the industry movement working to build a strong image of trucking by visiting TMAF's website at truckingmovesamerica.com. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and our latest channel, TikTok.
Welcome back to Women Road Warriors with Shelley Johnson and Kathy Tuccaro.
This would be a wonderful technique for people who have stage fright.
Oh,
As a performer, I was originally a music major, and certainly I've had those experiences where you sit
mhm.
down in front of the piano and all of a sudden your hands start sweating, it's counterproductive because then your hands are slippery, you know, and having to focus and just talk yourself down, if you will.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Um, would you recommend in stressful situations, if somebody has to make a presentation or maybe go into a job interview and they're nervous or anxious, do some tapping maybe a few minutes before?
Well, Shelley, it's interesting you bring that up. Both Janice, who was a previous guest, and I are both members of National Speakers Association, and I have a lot of clients from there, including clients that have been speaking on the stage for years,
Hmm.
that something happens and they freeze.
Yep.
Not a great idea. And I have worked with performers, both musical, artistic, actors, and have I have one actor who she every time before she goes on stage, she does tapping just to kind of calm the butterflies, and she's sold on it completely. So yes, for musical performances, for sports, for anything that you're feeling, you know, anxious about. Now you can tap yourself, or you can watch the videos. There are tons of videos on YouTube, including on my channel. I have a lot of examples.
Uh-huh.
What I found is that I actually have encountered a couple of people who said, "Oh, I know tapping. I've done it. I've done it, and I'm not really impressed." And I would challenge those people to work with a certified practitioner. As it turns out, when you work either by yourself or with a video, you don't really ask yourself the kind of questions that a certified practitioner might dig a little deeper, right?
Sure.
And ask. And everyone I've worked with who said, "Oh, I know all about tapping, I can do it." And then when they've worked with me or any other certified practitioner, they're like, "Okay, now I get it."
Yeah.
You can get a little deeper and you can go pretty fast. We've had what we call 1 minute wonders, where people come in with a pretty deep sense of waffles,
Hmm.
and and in less than an hour is completely gone. And what's interesting, Shelley, is that sometimes they won't credit tapping because it was so easy to relieve, that they're surprised. They're like, "Oh, well, I really didn't have that problem in the first place." So I have to show them their intake form where they said, "Yep, I had this problem."
It's very
Yeah.
fascinating. What is actually happening in the body that it just washes away your anxiety and
Yeah.
stress and
So
fear and
we're still doing research on exactly what's happening. You're absolutely correct when you say it's an acupuncture, acupressure kind of thing.
hmm.
And it's in the tapping of those along with the statements. The clinical studies we've done show that tapping by itself is effective. It is exponentially more effective when you add the phrases. Now, I've had some clients who um, and when I ask them for the negative emotion, they shy away and say, "Oh, no, I'm positive." I'm like, "Well, I'm sure you're positive, and I'm sure there's something in your life that has made you feel negative. You may or may not be admitting it, and not admitting it can actually cause a blockage." So sometimes just saying those negative phrases out loud, like, "I'm anxious about driving in the precarious with Michigan weather,"
Hmm.
and saying that out loud sometimes is all some people need, and for others we work a little bit longer. But what's happening in the body is we found that the cortisol levels are going down, um, and we're not sure exactly. I mean, I can't tell you exactly what's going on. We've just been able to monitor the results and hear the what people are saying about it, right? What they feel about it. And that's what we've been going with.
So it's a matter of verbalizing it. That's really kind of key.
Oh yeah,
Hmm.
absolutely. Yeah. And so when you tap on it, it's the tapping and the verbalizing on it. So I had I had one gentleman uh, that well over 6 feet tall, a retired military officer, was now working in on a ranch. And on this ranch, there were lots of spiders, lots and lots of spiders. And so he came to me because of his fear of spiders. I said, "Okay, we'll work on it." I said, "What is it about the spiders that triggers his fear?" He said, I hate walking into their web. I said, oh, I'm with you on that.
Mhm. Yeah.
So we tapped on it, and in a short period of time, he's like, "Oh, okay, I'm fine." Well, I saw him 2 weeks later, and I said, "So how is it with your fear of spiders?" He said, "I hate spiders, and I am still fearful of them." I said, "Wait a minute. I thought we got past this with working on the webs." He said, "Oh, I don't. I'm not worried about walking into the webs anymore. I can do that." He said, "What I hate is the way that they walk." Now that's what we call a different aspect. So he still has his fear of spiders, but there were so many different parts of his fear of spiders. It's
Okay.
like people who have a fear of snakes,
Sure.
right? Or I had a client who had a fear of flying. Now, when I think about fear of flying, my number one fear, it would be I wouldn't want it to crash. But that wasn't
Right.
her fear. That wasn't
Mm.
her fear. Her fear was she didn't like being claustrophobic. She didn't like, and it was during the pandemic, and she had to make multiple flights with her mask on. She
Mm.
hated wearing her
Mhm.
mask. She
Yep.
hated all this other stuff. So we had to work on each individual aspect of it. The fact that it was very crowded, the fact that her shoulder was going to be touching somebody else's shoulder, the fact that she would have to wear a mask this entire time. And we got through it so that, and it took a couple of sessions so that she could then fly and not have that fire in the pit of her belly.
That's so important. When you think about it, when people have a fear, I think that psychologists try to address and unpack all of the different aspects to it. But to be able to actually engage the body to
Yeah.
overcome, because it
Hmm.
really is, it's like our body, if you've ever had a panic attack, which I actually have had in the past,
Mm,
it was the
mm,
most scary, amazing thing that I'd ever experienced. What the heck is that? You think you're having a heart attack.
yeah.
Um, and it was just suddenly triggered.
Mm,
And to be able to basically talk the body down, I'm not
mm.
sure. Obviously, that's not a clinical description, but it's almost like you're talking your body into a more relaxed state, engaging what the parasympathetic nervous system.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yes. What it's called a somatic method because it is part of your body. And
Hmm.
it does trigger your parasympathetic. Your sympathetic nervous system comes up automatically. I mean, within milliseconds. And it comes
Hmm.
up whenever it feels like it's endangered.
Yep.
What happens is you have to counter it yourself specifically, and tapping will trigger your parasympathetic nervous system, allowing your body to operate at an optimal level.
Would you say that adults are more prone to having the fight flight than children? Because children seem to be so resilient in so many ways. And I've thought more than once in my lifetime, did I worry this much as a kid or just kind of roll along with the punches?
That's a great question, Shelley. And I think as we age, as we go through, as we grow, right, we get into more situations where our lymphatic nervous system, our amygdala at the base of our brain, our lizard brain, starts storing anything that might be potentially dangerous.
Hmm.
And it stores that the whole time we're growing up as we learn tools and ways to get out of dangerous situations using our cognitive brain, our cognitive or prefrontal cortex part of our brain um, cannot override the amygdala because the amygdala is meant to be our survival part. It's meant to keep us safe. And if it feels like there's something unsafe, it's going to override the thought process each and every time. So
Hmm.
tapping does allow the amygdala to kind of calm down and say, hey, I got this. I got some skills now that I didn't have. And as a child, part of what we're supposed to do is figure out what's safe and what's not safe. And
Right. Yeah.
right. And
Like
so
knowing
you
that learning that you can't fly is a little one. I thought I could. Just flap your arms.
that's a
Yeah.
very important
Mhm.
one, Shelley.
I was
Yeah, there's
adventurous as a child.
I was gonna say, I think there's a good story behind that one.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting, you think about if there was a fire right now in our each of our buildings where we were, we would know what to do. You go outside, call 911 and, put the fire out.
Mm-hmm.
If we were 15 years old, we'd probably know what to do. If we were 5 years old, we may not know what to do. But if you're 5 months old and you're laying in the middle of the crib, in the middle of the floor, and there's a fire, you don't have any idea what to do.
Yeah.
But your amygdala is taking charge of everything and saying something's not right. So it will digest every sound, every smell, everything it can possibly, using all five senses to remember it. And if there was a red trash can in the corner when you were 5 months old and there was a fire, and you walk into a room as an adult and there's a red trash can in the corner, your amygdala is going to go nuts. And you
Wow.
don't know why, because you
Mm-hmm.
don't remember being 5 months old. So there are some times when you meet people or you walk into some place and you go, I don't know why, but I'm not supposed to be here and I got to get out now. And
Yep.
it's when your amygdala has hijacked your system and put you into the sympathetic mode.
It's interesting how the brain actually remembers that so in such detail because of the amygdala from trauma, essentially, right?
Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. Or perceived trauma. That's the part that's interesting. It doesn't have to be trauma at all. It could be perceived trauma. They've done studies on children and infants who have not been abused but have witnessed abuse. So maybe partners, or if they were in a war-torn area or something. And
Yeah.
the effect on the brain is exactly the same as if they had been abused, as if they had been experiencing it. So it doesn't even have to be what's happening to them directly. It can be what's happening to others, and the effect on the brain is exactly the same.
Stay tuned for more of Women Road Warriors coming up.
Kathy DeCaro is nothing short of amazing. She not only drives the world's biggest truck as a heavy equipment operator in northern Alberta, Canada, she's an international motivational speaker and the author of Dream Big, an autobiography about overcoming a lifetime of trauma and abuse that led to dreams of success. Kathy inspires people the world over to change their lives and improve their self-worth. Her book will change your life. She's passionate about personal growth and believes anyone can change their circumstances and overcome their obstacles if they believe in themselves. Her life will amaze you and seriously inspire you. Be sure to order a copy of her book, Dream Big, on Amazon.com. Industry movement Trucking Moves America Forward is telling the story of the industry, our safety champions, the women of trucking, independent contractors, the next generation of truckers, and more. Help us promote the best of our industry. Share your story and what you love about trucking. Share images of a moment you're proud of. And join us on social media. Learn more at truckingmovesamerica.com.
Welcome back to Women Road Warriors with Shelley Johnson and Kathy DeCaro.
Now, with your techniques, do you just deal with tapping or do you work with other treatments to help people with their fear, frustration, lethargy, anxiety, and exhaustion? And I mean, there's so many things under waffles. It worries, worry. Oh my goodness. That's a word that really, as a child, you don't worry about anything either. It's like as an adult, why do I have to worry about this?
Right.
Because, you know.
Right. Yeah, I have accumulated a bank of knowledge that I share with my clients. Because sometimes you could be in a store and be really frustrated and don't feel like you want to tap the top of your head right away. So I
Right.
do.
People might look at you kind of funny. What's that person doing?
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Although, Shelley, you will see me driving around town tapping with one hand because of the drivers that are out there.
Hmm. I don't
But
blame
yeah,
you.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But yeah, I have collected a number of different methods to help people with square breathing. I try to tie them into mathematical terminologies because, at my heart, I'm a mathematician. Um, and binary feet is a great one if you're in a Zoom call and you really don't want to be there, but you can calm down your nervous system with that. I do hummingbird breath. I do some happening techniques. So I have a bank of techniques that I share with clients to help them deal with their stress. But the nice thing about tapping is that once they come to me, clinical studies have shown that that emotion about that particular issue will not return. And that's amazing.
Mm-hmm. So you're actually resolving
Yeah.
a lot of negative emotion, anxiety, fear. So you're taking control of your life, which this is
Yes.
what everybody would like. Because I really think, especially with women, we have such cyclical bodies. Every month things change with hormones and this and
Oh,
that.
yeah.
It's like you're thrust into puberty after being a child and go, what on earth is all of this? And it never stops in a woman's lifetime. So
Mhm.
a woman has to deal with hormonal issues
Right.
along with everything else. That makes it an even bigger challenge, I think, at handling the worry, anxiety, frustration, and fear that they deal with.
You're so right. You're so right. And, the people who have to live with us,
Right?
they can use tapping as well.
That's a good suggestion. I was going to ask, you mentioned square breathing and hummingbird breaths. What are
Yeah.
those?
So square breathing is a simple technique that people can use to calm their nervous system, and it's basically you do a breath that looks like a square. You take an inhale, a long inhale to the count of 4, and then you hold it to the count of 4, and then you exhale to the count of 4, and then you hold it to the count of 4. So
Okay.
I call that a square. And
Mhm.
just doing that, what I usually ask people is, where do you feel the stress right now? A lot of people have stress in their neck and shoulders. And I like to have people identify where the waffles are in their body, so they can notice the difference afterwards. And that's a really easy thing. Now, that's something you can easily do in line, at the store when you're getting frustrated because 4 people just jumped in front of you or something.
Sure.
Yeah. And you can just take a breath in through your nose
Or
and hold
somebody
it.
brings in, 20 items in the 10 items or less
Oh
line.
man,
Mm.
start the
Yeah,
square breathing.
exactly.
Yeah. Now the hummingbird breath is something that sounds like it could be a little bit less obvious, but it does make a little bit of noise. But you basically again, identify your stress in your neck or shoulders or wherever it is. Take a breath in through your nose, and then when you exhale, you hum it out. So it goes hmm,
Okay.
as long as you can. And if you do 3 of those, usually people feel a lot calmer after it, and they're calming that sympathetic nervous system.
Basically telling the amygdala to just take a nap, right?
Exactly. Calm down. I got this.
Right. Yeah, it is
Yeah.
kind of interesting how the amygdala is counterproductive to us.
Mm.
We needed it when we were being chased by big saber-toothed tigers and that sort of thing, right? But
Well, and it's still helpful to us as we're walking down a dark street and somebody's approaching,
yes,
and the amygdala can kind of let us know, is this a good time to cross the street, or do we feel safe? And so it can sense things beyond our 5 senses. And so paying attention to it from time to time is a good idea. But if you have something that is keeping you from doing your regular activities that you would like to continue doing, then tapping is a great way to actually just completely dissolve those waffles.
is the amygdala what is responsible for if you are in a very fearful situation, a sudden trauma, all of a sudden it's like the world slows down and you have this major focus. You see everything in complete detail, only it's in slow motion. I've experienced this a couple of times. You can see every single detail. And
Hmm.
even though something is happening in a matter of seconds, it doesn't
Hmm.
feel that way. It's almost like your brain is able to engage within that short amount of time. Is that the amygdala that's actually kicking in and causing that?
Yeah, it's a whole system that the amygdala triggers. It
Mm-hmm.
stops it stops digestion in your stomach. It increases the flow of oxygen to your legs and to your arms, to your large muscle groups,
Hmm.
and it does it. There's so many things that are going on in your body when your sympathetic nervous system kicks in. Um, it signals your adrenals, so you get flooded with adrenaline and cortisol. And now some people enjoy that and go for an adrenal, hit.
Hmm.
But you do that a number of times and you're going to create adrenal fatigue, and then you create, health issues. And that's why it's so critically important to be able to address the waffles and to be able to take charge of them. Because if you don't, the waffles will take charge of your body.
Oh, yeah. It's very, very bad for the human body to encounter that sort of thing. Now, for our listeners who may have just tuned in, waffles are worries, anxiety, fear, frustration, lethargy, exhaustion, and stress. And Dr. Null, you have ways people can deal with all of this. That's a mouthful. I'm glad it's an acronym. But to deal with any one of these things is really difficult. Where do
Yeah.
people reach out to you? Where can people work with you? Can they work remotely?
Yeah, Shelley, I've been using Zoom for 10 years before the pandemic. I've got clients all over the world in all kinds of different time zones. I am on all social media as Katie Nall, PhD. That's
Hmm.
Katienall, PhD. My website, I made a pun of my last name. It's
Hmm.
Nall followed by the word edge, EDGECO.com. So it's knowledgecompany.com. And I'm also, I would challenge any of your listeners to give me a call. I'd love to talk to them. They can call me at area code 772-226-0167. That's 772-226-0167.
This has been wonderful, Katie. We've covered a ton of topics and you've been super helpful. Just to recap, you have 2 books, which are also courses. They're called Dissolving Waffles, Worries, Anxiety, Fear, Frustration, Lethargy, Exhaustion, and Stress, and Emotional Wealth, How to Stop Living in Emotional Debt. I'm sure that's going to be great for our listeners as well. This has been super informative. Was there anything else you wanted to add, Katie?
Well, Shelley, first of all, I want to thank you. I think that what you and Kathy are doing is really amazing, and I appreciate all the hard work that you're doing with this. And to let people know that they can control their stress, there are tools out there and techniques, and lots of people who are willing to help them.
This has been marvelous. This is going to give women and anyone listening major empowerment over anxiety and stress and fear. We all need to have a sense of control that we certainly haven't been able to have for the past couple of years.
Yeah, and I appreciate you, Shelley and Kathy. I appreciate the opportunity to be able to share this knowledge. It's a passion of mine to make sure that people have the tools necessary to be able to handle their own stress.
Yes. Thank you for being on the show. For our listeners who haven't written it down, what is your website again?
Knowledgecompany.com, NALLEDGECO.com.
Wonderful. Thank you, Katie. This has been terrific. I appreciate you taking the time to be on the show and sharing some of this great insight.
Thank you, Shelley. I appreciate you.
You've been listening to Women Road Warriors with Shelley Johnson and Kathy Tuccaro. If you want to be a guest on the show or have a topic or feedback, email us at info@tncradio.live.
Thank you for listening to another great interview on tncradio.live. And don't forget, be sure to subscribe to our podcast of Women Road Warriors. It's free. All of the material you hear on tncradio.live, on our website, our broadcasts, or our podcasts are copyrighted. There can be no distribution without the express consent of tncradio.live and its partners. For inquiries, write us at info@tncradio.live.